Welcome to the show. Welcome to a brand new week. We're turning the page almost officially. We'll only touch on, well, I guess technically we're going to have to touch on last week a little bit because we got comments from Marcus Freeman, and a lot of them have to do with the first game of the season. But I am so glad, Vince. I am so glad, if I can just rant here for a minute. I am so glad last week is over. I felt like we were wearing milk-bone underwear all week, just running from a pack of wild dogs, and people wanted answers. They couldn't get answers, and we were left out here dangling, with our booties in the wind, people coming at us from all angles. I even had Miami people coming at me because I wasn't nice enough to their wide receivers. I had people coming at me proposing a free, absolutely, FREE, video interview of Leah Macy from Notre Dame women's basketball during a bye week, mind you, when there is no Notre Dame football going on. And people are like, this isn't football. This is only supposed to be football. Nobody made you watch it. If you don't want to watch it, you don't have to watch it because, by the way, it's free. Welcome to the show, though. We actually made each other laugh. I laughed for the first time today. I don't know why. Waking up to 42-degree weather, it wasn't a conscious decision. But for some reason, the older I get, the more the weather affects my mood. And I'm just not ready for 40s in the morning, I guess, because I've just been I've been feeling a little surly all day long.
You were surly when we first got on here. I mean, you were hurling insults my direction. I've never been so insulted in my life from you.
It's actually a compliment to your wife.
Yes, it was.
Less than an insult at you. So
that's the way I took it. Well, I'm glad that you can get a little bit of a laugh out of the way here.
Yes.
Because it's been a Monday. You know what I mean? Like, it's been a Monday.
Yep.
And it is game week. And listening to Marcus Freeman's press conference this afternoon, it definitely left a little something to be desired. But
maybe that's part of it.
It didn't help. I can tell you that. How was the lunch at Notre Dame?
I don't go to the lunches.
You don't go? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I know you would if you were going to all the press conferences. I've got other things, because it's like fair. It's Monday. I've got other things I'm trying to get done before I have to go to the press conference. And then so I don't typically go to the lunch. So
okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's not something I would miss because I feel like you got to take advantage of all the free food. I mean, that's not surprising to anyone who has followed you and I over the past 20 years. But yes, I would have taken. When I got that email, I was like, "Oh man, Stires gets free lunch." I was jealous. I was a little jealous, and you didn't even take advantage of it.
I know. It's on me.
It's okay though.
It happens.
It does, but a lot left to be desired from that press conference, though, because you're right. We weren't able to hear anything from the Notre Dame camp all last week. We're trying to come up with, why did this happen? Why did this happen? All of these different things all last week. We finally get to hear from the man himself, and I'm left wanting.
If you wanted blood, you didn't get it at the press conference today.
There were
for sure
a lot of upset people in like the chat.
I'm sure.
I was watching.
I'm sure there were
a lot of upset people in the chat, and it did not help when someone asked about Shane Gillis. Like, that felt like a wasted question.
That was the last question of the press conference, though, and it was established before that.
Goodness.
But I feel you.
That was an opportunity wasted. That's the way I look at it. But
took a little time for the offensive line to come up. I was a little bit surprised by that myself.
I think people are afraid. I really do.
When it wasn't coming, because I was sitting there and I'm like, I always start thinking, okay, kind of, feel the vibe of the room. What am I going to ask? And that kind of stuff. And so finally it's like, all right, nobody's asking about the offensive line. So I get my hand up and of course, by the time the microphone came to me, a few questions were asked. And then at that point, it's like, well, you're going to beat a dead horse here, and we'll hear what he said about the offensive line and a lot of other things as well. So that's all coming up.
Oh, it is.
Coming up today. Tommy Guns in the YouTube chat, he is coming to town this weekend.
Ooh.
And he asks if I will acknowledge him if he promises to bring me a 12-pack of Budweiser. Now, he actually said a different beer, but this is Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with Irish Breakdown. Actually, I'm not allowed to say any other beer on the, during the show.
That's a good point.
Other than Budweiser. But Tommy, the answer is yes. I will. I know you come from Ohio, where the beer is fresh. So, and I'm not saying, but you can always get a nice cold Budweiser here in town as well. But I will acknowledge you, Tommy.
Consider yourself acknowledged.
Yes. Just let me know what pole to find you by out in the parking lot. Is there going to be an official IB tailgate for this game? Do we know?
I don't know, to be honest with you, because I'm probably not going to participate in many of those this year. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
It's off my radar, Sean.
It is. It is. Vince went out of town for some football this weekend. We'll touch on that in a little bit if you want to. If there's anything,
we certainly can.
Let
me tell you what, I got a heavy introduction into D2 football.
Okay.
This weekend, like holy cow, I could not have scripted the way this game went. So I would love to talk about that at some point.
Excellent. Heavy dose,
baby. Heavy dose.
I got a heavy dose of. Well, I'll save it because we got a lot of Marcus Freeman to.
Yes, we do.
I'm thinking about it right now. Maybe, like between, everyone coming for a chunk of our hides last week.
Yeah.
And then staying up late an extra hour because of the weather delay in Cowboys-Eagles Thursday night. That didn't help my mood any. And then, I've been looking forward to Kansas, Missouri, especially as a substitute with no Notre Dame football over the weekend. First time they've played the border war in 14 years. And, my guys are up and then they blow the lead late. It's like, come on, Jalen Daniels, just hold on to the freaking football.
Yeah.
That didn't work out. And then, it was nice to kind of sit back and watch NFL opening weekend yesterday, but I was also kind of pulling for the Ravens last night. That didn't work out either. So
I was definitely not pulling for the Ravens, but either way, no matter what team you were pulling for, it ended up being a very entertaining football game. Like one that I usually am like, you know what, Sunday Night Football, I'm not going to make it to the end. I need to go to bed, kind of a deal. I ended up staying up for the whole thing because it ended up being very entertaining. So I saw it through. Saw it through, and I paid for it a little bit this morning.
Yeah. That's what happens with these late games. And now my daughter, the Bears fan, you're a Bears fan as well. We got Bears and Vikings tonight, all this night football.
I mean, this one could very well be over fairly quickly, so I'm not going to get.
I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think it's going to be pretty close, Vince. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
I want one thing out of tonight. One thing.
I heard someone say happiness is expectations minus reality. And so I think if you just adjust your expectations to reality a little bit going into tonight, maybe you come out happy one way or the other.
Look, I don't even care who wins or loses, if I'm being honest.
Oh, you do too.
I just want to see a certain quarterback clad in purple on his back a lot.
Okay.
That's all I want. That's all I want. That's it. I'm setting the bar low. I'm setting the expectations low, Sean.
I love how Irish Gordian Knot will find a way to come at me with the Cowboys, no matter how close the game, no matter how, like he's calling them garbage once again. Yes, because if CD Lamb holds on to one of those two balls at the end of the game, we're talking about a different outcome right now. But bygones, different. Turn the page.
Let me ask you a question. And since this is Sportsbeat, and what did you think about? Because I don't remember this being the case, and maybe it has been. Maybe I just don't pay attention. What did you think about all these games in week one, all being division games, like divisional rivalry games in week one?
I don't like it. I don't like it
either. Okay.
I don't like divisional games starting things off. I never have. I think those games are too important. They're weighted too much to be playing each other right out of the gate, and then like in some cases, teams are going to turn around and play another divisional game next week in week 2.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Yeah. It was way too much weight on week 1, and I realized there's a lot of weeks of football to be played. But can we ease into it just a little bit? I mean, it still would have been a big deal having week 1 in the NFL and the whole deal, and everybody, all the same number of eyes would have been watching. I just don't like these divisional games right off the bat.
I agree. Don't like them at all. And then, like they make the Chiefs and Chargers go to Brazil to play a division game right away. Like,
don't like that either.
How is that fair?
You shouldn't be playing divisional games out of the country.
Yeah, exactly. And in week 1 to boot.
Right.
Just not good. Not good. But with the NFL, we know it's basically just a TV show that / money printing machine. So
yeah, I know. But they still would have printed all the same money no matter who was playing, because it's the NFL's week 1. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter who was playing who. Everybody would have watched. Everybody would have watched.
All right, you've warmed me up a little bit. My mood has gone from maybe -3 to closer to 0.
Are we at absolute 0 yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just say something that I can throw you a jab, and maybe it'll.
Don't worry, I'm sure that's coming. I'm sure of that.
All right. So Marcus Freeman's press conference today. Bye week last week after the 3-point loss at Miami. So how did the team respond?
Very similar to their head coach. They're disappointed, frustrated. When you invest a lot into, achieving a certain outcome, and the work they put in, and you don't get the outcome that you desire, it hurts. And then, there's sleepless nights, there's loss of appetite. But what we have to do is we have to turn that frustration into work. And we did. I was really pleased with the work that was put in by our players, our coaching staff, this past week in terms of how to elevate, right? Like, how do we find a way to get better? We can't let the outcome, good or bad, distract our eyes from the reality of where we're at with the program, right? And as I told them, you look at last year and this year, we're 1-0 and 0-1, but take away the outcome, like where are we as a program in terms of trying to reach our full potential? And so they turn that frustration into work, and we have to continue to be intentional this week.
I almost felt like he was beginning to spin a riddle there for a second with, outcome and week 1 versus, this year versus last year. So
it was a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. Was there anything particular you were able to pull out of that?
I mean, it's all good advice. It's all things you tell your team. You tell them the same thing, whether you won or lost. Obviously, it's 1-0 every week. It is, no matter what happened last week, you attack this week. Blah. I mean, it was a lot of coach speak in there. Not anything that I disagree with. Obviously, those are the things that you tell your team. And I'm glad that he's happy about the way everybody worked and how the coaches worked and all of those things. I don't doubt that they all worked in the preseason too. I don't doubt that they worked during fall camp.
Mm-hmm.
My issue is, what were they working on? Like, it's easy to work hard on something, but if you're working hard on the wrong thing, then that work doesn't matter. Like, that's where I'm at with this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got an extra week to work on things when it comes down to it. Irish Gordy and Not in the YouTube chat says, again, this reminds me of how Freeman sounded after NIU. I mean, to an extent.
Yeah.
To a great extent, it's like you lose. What are you going to say? You can tell he's working hard because, like, even in some of the questions, the more direct questions that he got today, he was working hard not to throw anybody under the bus. There were some hints kind of woven in there in some of the responses, though, I felt like. He said in his opening statement that they addressed some areas of concern during the bye week. So this is a follow-up to that. What exactly were those areas of concern? Felt like that was a really good question.
There was a lot, takeaways, ball security, tackling, third down on both sides, short yardage, 2-minute. Those are things that we didn't really execute well in last week's game. Really starting fast out of each half, right? The first half, starting fast, we didn't start fast, and then the second half, coming out of locker room, we didn't start fast. And so, starting fast is, I think, a general term, but I mean, how do you change that? Is you are the focus and intention is where it needs to be on that play at that given moment, and the execution will follow.
Okay, so I mean, you got a few things that I thought were highly relevant. Ball security, that's an important one. Tackling, starting fast each half, kind of, going back and answering to an extent, the middle eight kind of question, like that he didn't answer after the game. Anything that you felt like he left out of that laundry list of things, though, Vince?
Protecting the quarterback, I think, was one that he left out. I would have liked to see that. He did say protecting the football, so I mean that obviously covers the fumble and the interception. And he said short yardage, that covers a little bit of offensive line, obviously, as well. And he said on both sides, third down on both sides of the ball. Yep, accurate. More specifically, third and long. They did pretty good on third and short. They did not do very good on third and long defensively. So those are obviously all things that needed to be worked on. I would have just added protecting the quarterback, because I think at times it made, CJ Carr's life a little bit more complicated with the protection that was in front of him. And I think he could have been more effective had that protection been better.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, did he say short yardage?
He did say short yardage.
Yeah, he did say short yardage. So to an extent, that relates to the offensive line.
It does.
But
it does.
So that's like the only offensive line
correct
answer that he gave in that list of things. And let's be honest. I think most people, I definitely expected to hear a little bit more on the offensive line. But again, like based on things that we heard last week, there is a question of just how much of a concern they actually see the offensive line.
It's concerning. I will say that. Yeah. I will say it's concerning. I'll let him talk about the offensive line, because I know we have a cut concerning the offensive line. So I don't want to.
We have a couple cuts concerning
I don't want to step on his response, but I will say that the reaction to the offensive line, from what I can tell from Notre Dame itself, not great. Concerning.
I think it is a concern, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. I wish I was a domer in the YouTube chat says, given how new these guys are to leadership compared to last year, was it a miscalculation to name captains so late before the first game? He says they all played like, and there's an emoji with the Dookie sign in there. I think that the captain thing is overblown in this, especially regarding how they played. It was not a really good game for anybody outside of CJ Carr and a handful of other guys, and like associating gameplay and being a captain. Like, even if you're a captain, you can have a bad day. It just so happened, I think, that a collection of captains had bad days against Miami. So I really don't think that correlates to anything tangible in like any conversation you want to have about the result of the Miami game. What do you think?
I would say that, the last, like, if I'm putting a list together of things that I would blame an outcome of the Miami game, the captains are very low on the list, if on the list at all, to be perfectly honest with you. When you name a captain doesn't change anything, because in my experience with teams that I have coached or been on, guys don't act differently once they're named a captain. They're named captains because they're leaders.
Right.
So they've been leading the whole time. So nothing really changes at that point. Now they just have a golden C on their shirt. Like, I don't think that has anything to do with it. Now, if you want to if you want to go back and you look at how all six of them played, they didn't play great. Okay. But I can name off a lot of other guys that didn't play great either. And so exactly. It's an overplayed narrative, in my opinion, when it comes to the captain's thing.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, we will take our first break. When we come back, we'll hear Marcus Freeman's comments on the offensive line. There were a few different things, the offensive line, his overall evaluation of the line, as well as what might happen at that right guard position going forward, and also how you sort of evaluate one game and whatever issues you have being opponent specific versus what you might think are bigger picture issues. He talked about all that. So we've got all those comments from Marcus Freeman coming up after we take this break. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Hope you're enjoying this fall-like weather, as Abby Wepler just told us. It sounds like it's going to be back in the 80s very soon, and I'm kind of digging that, to be quite honest. I like fall. I'm just not ready for it right now, Vince.
That's fair.
Got other things to do right now.
That's fair. I'm all in on fall right now because I'm having to be at high school football games and do all these different things. I'm all in on fall. I love the fact there's that little crisp, kind of breeze in the air once the sun goes down. Like, that's football weather, baby. Like, I'm in. I'm all in.
Joe Allen in the YouTube chat says, seems like there are a lot of grumpy people today. Really? I mean, I think this extends back. It was a grumpy offseason, if you asked me.
That's fair.
Considering the success of last year, it just seemed like people were a little more surly than they needed to be. And losing week 1 to Miami, I just don't think helped anything at all. Not at all.
No, it didn't. It certainly did not help anybody's grumpy factor.
No.
It certainly didn't help mine. I was very grumpy all weekend last weekend because I am that guy that the Notre Dame game affects my mood moving forward. I try not to let it affect me too much. And if I didn't have this job, it probably wouldn't affect me as much. But like I have to keep going to the well and like talking about it every day.
Mhm.
And then of course,
Mhm.
everybody that we knows that we do this job. And so they have to ask me and you know what I mean? Individually, like out in our real world lives, like, so what happened? Well, listen to the show is what I want to say. Like,
Right.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
My wife even has like coworkers who,
Yes.
who listen to us, who like text her and message her for the answers. And, it's like she tries to keep up. She might be listening as she's driving home right now. Maybe she's already home. I don't know, but she tries, but
Right.
she doesn't know the answers.
Correct. Yes. And I get that.
I mean,
Like,
do we know the answers? I mean, that's,
we like to, I think we know more answers than a lot.
we like to
a
try
lot of
to,
people,
we like
but-
to try to have the answers.
Yes. But
That's part of last week, with
Right.
no press conference, with an extra week in between games. We were just kind of dangling in the wind. Like if there would have been a second game this week, it would be on to the next chapter.
yes.
Right?
Correct.
We're still stuck in the same, it was like we paused the audio tape last week and now finally we get to look ahead a little bit, but it's still, we're going to have to talk about some of the same stuff.
Yep.
Because the fact that there wasn't a game in week 2.
Yep.
So offensive line, as promised, Marcus Freeman was asked about that today. It did come up, and he was asked about the line getting handled maybe more than they've been handled in his time as head coach. Like I won't go so far as to say pushed around, but they were not the physical aggressors, as we talked about all of last week, for all the people who came at us for not criticizing them enough after we ripped them up for 2 days. So here is Marcus Freeman's evaluation of the offensive line over 4 quarters versus Miami. I'm sure this is just going to really satisfy a lot of people.
I thought overall they played well. The standard is to play higher. We know that. Part of it is credit to their D-line, their players. Sometimes you can get paralyzed because of movement. Right? Their D-line moved a little bit and did some different things, and what we don't want to do is paralyze the velocity and the aggression that our O-line plays with, and you got to be able to collect some of that movement as you move vertically. And so, at times I thought we did get to a little bit lateral in terms of, how we want to play our offensive, how we want our offensive line to play. But, I'm as confident in that group as anybody in our team. They'll be fine.
So it wasn't even a compliment sandwich. It was just, pretty much flat out compliments. Thomas says, based on Freeman's press conference today, we know very little about the offensive line adjustments. No, I think you know everything about the offensive line adjustments because
There are none.
there are none. Like in terms of personnel, you know everything there is to know. Like barring something crazy happening this week, I'll just say no one's going to leapfrog from second on the depth chart to number 1 at the depth chart.
I mean, the depth chart didn't change. And,
Exactly.
We're going to talk about that a little more in rapid fire, obviously. But, I mean, it was a carbon copy depth chart of what we had week 1. So, or week 0 or whatever week you want to call it. Different conversation. But, like, nothing changed. So, he's telling you that nothing has changed. They just need to play better.
Yeah.
We heard that from a previous head coach, and it didn't work then. So I'm very curious to see how this pans out, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's unfortunate that multiple players decided to play poorly on the same day, which is not usually the case, right? We lauded Emil Wagner and how well he played all season. Consistent, I should say, how consistent Emil Wagner was all season. And now all of a sudden he's, making ridiculous mistakes out there at right tackle. Anthony Knapp obviously did not play well. They had kind of a rotating, kind of a rotating gate at right guard. Maybe they know who the starter is now. Maybe they don't. He wasn't clear on that either in the press conference. So
we'll hear that here in a minute.
Yeah. So just basically, there were a lot of question marks at offensive line and how they played, and we got no solution to that. We'll see what happens on Saturday night, because a lot of times they're not going to give you solutions in a press conference. We've got to wait to see them play.
This is what's distressing is, the head coach, again, I understand not throwing them under the bus, but there's also a difference between not throwing a unit or players under the bus, but also having a realistic eye toward what you actually saw in their performance. And I'm looking at the PFF grades from the Miami game, and Anthony Knapp got a 12.9 grade in pass blocking
out of
100.
Yeah, exactly.
12.9.
Want to make sure that's driven home, that's not like a 12 out of 20.
Yes.
Or, a 12 out of 15. It's 12 out of 100.
He got a 48.3 overall grade out of 100. That is not a passing grade. Like if we're doing A, B, C, D, like that is an F.
Correct.
That he got from PFF. The right tackle, Emil Wagner, per PFF, got a 38 point. Now, he was a little bit more consistent, but he got a 38.4 pass block grade, a 39.7 run block grade, and a 39.4 overall. But that is still a very, very low grade. Now, those were the two, the tackles were the two lowest, but Sullivan Absher got a 49.6 overall and a 29.8 pass block grade. Gerby Lambert got a 56.6 overall, a little bit better in run blocking, 67.4, but a 2.4 pass block grade. It's just, that's what's most distressing is no matter, and I realize people had, like their different stock that they put in the PFF and stuff like that. But a 12.9 is a 12.9.
Correct.
Like,
yes.
So even if we're going to, to grade like even a 20, like from 12.9 to get to a passing grade, you've got to add what? 40.1, like to get to just to get to a, bottom line passing grade.
See, and that, look, we'll give PFF, we'll be negative towards PFF when we think that they deserve to be negative, right? And a lot of
when they don't back up our argument.
Duh. But here's the thing. Again, as you mentioned, you can have arguments with the way that PFF graded the offensive line if you think that they played better than a 12. If you think Anthony Knapp played better than a 12% passing grade, cool. But you can't possibly think that the grading was so poor that he at least deserved a passing grade. Like there's, you just can't. And again, do these numbers back up what we think happened? Yes, they do. Right. And so we're using them. But anybody who watched that game and just watched each individual offensive lineman on the 24 dropbacks that they had, there's no way they're going to give them passing grade as a unit.
Right.
As a unit, and then individually even worse for some guys. So,
yeah, and I realize, again, like people want to, like throw shade at PFF and whatever else. There are plenty of Power 4 schools and NFL teams that subscribe to PFF. I would say a lot of them do for a lot of different things. Yeah. So
there's a lot of things PFF does really, really well.
Yeah.
They do. And we've had issues with some of their grading and all of that. But these grades are so bad. Like they're so bad that there's some truth to it. A lot of truth to it. That's the thing.
Right. And we all watched the game.
Correct.
Last week. Like you can knock PFF stuff. I'm just giving you like where they graded out. You can knock their stuff, but you watch the game. Like there were obvious issues with Notre Dame's offensive line and pass blocking was a big one. Like not just the end of the game where it was obvious what Notre Dame had to do, and Miami just, bull rushed and pinned its ears back and came after CJ Carr. To get those kind of grades, it had to be consistently bad all night long. And it just was for a good deal of the night. And that's so you hope that they're taking care of things behind closed doors. But, just to be honest, we said last week, based on things that we were hearing, we did not expect to hear a bunch of changes, like radical changes coming to Notre Dame's offensive line. Now, a good follow-up, because this question came about, that was about Freeman's evaluation of Notre Dame's offensive line over 4 quarters of play. And then tied in with that, Freeman was asked, how do you balance problems that might be opponent specific in one game versus needing to potentially make changes in personnel? And here's what Freeman said to that.
That's something you always evaluate. You evaluate it in practice, you evaluate it in the game. I don't think as we evaluate that game, we said, okay, we got a personnel issue. Not at all. It's continuously executing at a high level, right? And that's what we got to be able to do. I think I said it to the team after the game. There were plays in that game where Notre Dame beat Notre Dame, which it's inexcusable. We can't beat ourselves. But there were plays that Miami out-executed us at a higher level. And so that's why practice is so important. You got to evaluate those things that you're doing schematically in practice. That's why good on good is really important. I think sometimes when you go against a scout team, it can be a little bit of football instead of football. And at the end of the day, I'm as confident on personnel as I've ever been.
He's as confident in the personnel as he's ever been.
Okay. He was also extremely confident in the interior of the defensive line going into the first game.
Well, and I mean, if that's the case, if that's truly the case, that Marcus Freeman is as confident in the personnel as he's ever been, then what I'm hearing, the only thing that I can deduce from that is Miami's defensive line is so good that that's the best defensive line that they're going to face all season. That's, based on what we saw from Notre Dame's offensive line performance, if that is Marcus Freeman's true feeling about Notre Dame's offensive line, that's the best defensive line Notre Dame's going to see all season. And I'm not saying that you don't have to worry about anybody else all year, but what he's saying is that's going to be rectified because we're not going to see Miami's line the rest of the year. Do you agree with that?
There's a kernel of truth there because I do believe that Miami probably has the most athletic defensive line that they're going to face all season. Okay, I get that. That doesn't explain away the mistakes that were made. You know what I mean? That is like it's like a little bit of a half truth, right? So there's some truth to that made Notre Dame's night more complicated, more difficult. Okay, I got it. But there were also self-inflicted wounds there that allowed Miami to eat way more than they should have been allowed to eat. So I feel like he's leaning one way as opposed to the other, which is his prerogative, but it's not the full truth.
I kind of think so as well. Yeah. It's a little bit baffling, to hear that because we all saw what we saw last week. Gerby Lambert, Sullivan Absher rotated in at right guard in that Miami game. So will they continue to do that? And what's Charles Jagasaw's contribution as he continues to recover from his injury?
Yeah, Charles is rehabbing and when he's out there at practice, he's engaged, like he has a role, right, in terms of helping those guys that are playing, but also helping himself stay mentally sharp. We were intentional about seeing both Gerby and Sully, and both did some good things and both did some things that they need to improve on. They're still slashed for this week as we move forward, but I'm not saying that we're going to play them both this week. Made that decision.
So he said he's not saying that they're going to play them both this week against Texas A&M. Do you think that he's coming to a decision one over the other?
It sounded that way. because he's like, well, we haven't made it. Yes, you have. You've made a decision. Like, don't, because he didn't commit to playing both of them, right? If he would have committed to playing both of them, then I would believe that there was no decision made. But he didn't commit to that, and he said, but we haven't made a decision yet. Well, okay. You're speaking out of both sides of the old mouth there. I think they have made a decision. I think it's going to be Gerby Lambert, and they're going to go from there. Now, look, Gerby Lambert was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination on Saturday or Sunday. He made mistakes, no doubt about it. One of them almost got his quarterback killed. So, he's going to have to be better, but I do think the upside is better with Gerby at guard. I just wish he was competing at tackle instead of guard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I think a lot of people wish a lot of different people were competing at tackle right now. Will Black is obviously one that someone just brought up in the YouTube chat. He is one that comes up over and over again. The one thing I'll say to people getting mad about moving Will Black from tackle to guard is there are a lot of guys who have been converted from high school tackle to guard.
For sure.
Now, especially in this in this program specifically, because they, just like Harry Heestand was doing, Joe Rudolph is recruiting a lot more tackles, bringing them to Notre Dame, and then finding the best fit for them once they get to Notre Dame. Now, we can obviously argue about, what's the best fit for what particular player. And, honestly, until the tackles play better, the current ones who are out there starting on Saturdays right now, and until that happens, until they play a lot better, you're going to hear a lot more people continuing to beat that drum about why isn't this guy, why is this guy playing here? Why isn't he playing there? All those different kind of things. It's just going to keep happening. I will say this though. I watched, I saw part of Texas A&M's game against UT San Antonio. I watched a good deal of their Utah State game the other day, and I know it ended up being pretty lopsided. Utah State doesn't have near the athletes. Now, Texas A&M's, both of their lines, I felt like played how you would expect that they should play against, a completely overmatched team like Utah State. Now, I wasn't, there were a couple playmakers on the defensive line, but I wasn't impressed with them just in terms of physically just flat out dominating Utah State, that kind of thing. I didn't feel like their offensive line really had to work very hard to keep Utah State away from Marcel Reed. And I didn't feel like, again, with the kind of talent their defensive line was facing, I don't feel like Notre Dame is going to be overmatched going up against Texas A&M going into this game. I'll say that. I think it should look a lot different for Notre Dame's offensive line if they perform even close to the standard that we have for them.
I agree. I mean, look, they didn't play up to the standard on Sunday night. They did not play up to the standard. They did not play up to their talent level. And it's not like we're expecting them to be otherworldly. Somebody earlier in the chat said, people need to temper their superhuman or, superhero expectations of Notre Dame. I don't have superhero expectations of Notre Dame. All I wanted Notre Dame, specifically since we're talking about the offensive line, the only thing I wanted Notre Dame to do was play to the level that they have played in the past.
Yeah.
That's it. And maybe take a small step forward since they're all returning guys from last year. That's all I was looking for. And they regressed. They were worse than they were at the end of last year. So I'm not looking for superhero activity here. I'm looking for show me what you've done in the past and just do that. Just do that.
Yeah.
And they didn't even do that.
You showed while going to the national championship game. We said this multiple times last week. They had 3 guys on the, starting offensive line who started in the college football playoff semifinals against Penn State last year. They didn't get whipped by Penn State the way they got whipped at times by Miami. A year later, presumably all that experience, more strength, the whole thing.
Right, all of it.
We did not expect them to be, as I kind of said before, leading into that soundbite, physically handled in the way they were at times by Miami. And that's the most concerning thing to me, because, again, I feel like Miami is good, but are they really
exactly
that good?
Look, I had Miami in the playoff. I had as one of the last teams into the playoff, right? So it's basically like a 10-2 record, probably losing in the ACC championship game. Like that's where I have Miami. So I'm not saying they're a bad football team. I'm not saying that at all. I still don't think they're as good as Notre Dame. And you can say that I've got rose-colored glasses and I'm a homer and all. That's fine. But when you look at the two rosters side by side, Notre Dame has a better roster. I'm sorry, that's a fact. And I think it'll play out that Notre Dame has a better team as things move forward. But Miami was better on Sunday night. So I'm not saying that they weren't, because Miami was better. They wanted it more. They were tougher. They were all of those things, and they deserved to win that game. I always come back to this. Notre Dame had every opportunity to win that game on Sunday. With how poorly they played, they still could have won that game
right
at the end if they had gotten one more stop at the end of the game. One more, and they didn't. So I'm just saying there's a lot of room for improvement for Notre Dame, and it's improvement that we have already seen in the past. They just need to get back to that. Just get back to that. You'll be just fine. So that's why the sky's not falling, is what I'm saying. The sky is not falling by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank you very much, Chicken Little. We'll take our final timeout of this hour. We'll wrap up this hour, a question or two from the YouTube chat. We've got a lot more in hour number 2. It is fully spacious now. We've got no South Bend Cubs baseball after us, so we are a full 2-hour all-service show from here on out for the foreseeable future. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down hour number 1 of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. Along with Vince DeDario, I'm Sean Stires. I'm trying to get a good volume level in my headsets today. It's either blasting my ears or I can't hear. It's an issue.
That is an issue because people don't understand how important the old headphones are, when it comes to radio.
Jesse freaked out the one time he came into the studio. Apparently his headphones, he had never heard himself. And
really?
It was freaking him out because he heard himself.
I cannot do podcasts or radio without having my own voice in my ear.
I can't either. It strains my vocal cords too much if I don't.
Right, because if I feel like I have to talk louder, and
exactly,
it doesn't work out. So I blame you because you're the one that taught me everything I know about radio.
There you go. Good, bad, indifferent.
Now, I will say, because Insured by Big says he hates the sound of his voice. I'm cool with the sound of my voice like now. I don't like re-listening to anything that I say.
I hate the sound of your voice too, Insured by Big. That's why I keep you in the YouTube chat.
I thought that was going to be directed right at me. That's where I thought we were going with that one.
I'm kidding. You've got an amazing voice for a YouTube chat.
I thought you were coming right at me for that one.
Speaking of YouTube chat, I think this is my neighbor, Justin.
Oh, nice. Was he a Marine?
Yes, he was.
Okay. All right.
And that looks
There's no was.
Well, he was, but a Marine, like once a Marine, always a Marine.
Correct.
Basically, you're a Marine for life is kind of the way that whole thing works. But that looks like he and his wife in the photo. It's so small. If I could zoom in, I would be able to tell you for sure. But he asked, what aspects of Texas A&M are going to challenge Notre Dame the most, and what does Notre Dame need to do to overcome it? I mean, I think the biggest thing is the quarterback, Marcel Reed, because he is a much more, like mobile. He's a much more mobile quarterback. Yeah. Like Carson Beck was a pocket guy. Marcel Reed, I felt like they tried to keep Marcel Reed in that Utah State game Saturday. It felt like they wanted him to stay in the pocket as much as possible and not really kind of show some of the running. And then he kind of just had to get out a couple of times, and he burned Utah State pretty bad. But I think that's going to be the biggest thing is Marcel Reed.
Yep,
containing him.
I could not agree more. I think that has always kind of plagued Notre Dame for the last decade or more, is a mobile quarterback. And I think hopefully Saturday is not more of the same. But I think that is one of the biggest challenges, especially if they play defensively how they played on Sunday.
Yep. Exactly. And the odd thing, because we spent all last week complaining about, well, Notre Dame played so much zone and they shouldn't have played so much zone. Well, against a mobile quarterback, you kind of want more zone because you want, like as you're playing zone, obviously,
back.
Yeah, your DBs are backpedaling and they're not turning their back. Whereas, it's like the first half of the Cowboys-Eagles game with Jalen Hurts the other night. Dallas was trying to mix it up a little bit, but they got burned, and Jalen Hurts just took off and ran for a couple of touchdowns. And Justin said, by the way, yes, it is indeed him. So
I'm going to pull a Jesse here,
what's up, neighbor?
And I'm going to say, don't use a spy.
I agree.
I hate spies. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I hope they don't do it. You can do it on occasion, but that cannot be a staple of your defense.
Yeah. You got to keep him in the pocket as much as possible,
right,
and just be able to account for him. I don't mind if they mix one in every now and then in certain
long,
if you're going to spy, that takes away that takes a man away from your secondary, from your coverage, basically. I think keep him in the pocket as long as possible, contain him, and make him have to beat you with his arm, because I don't think that he's always going to make really good decisions if they're able to do that.
I completely agree with that. And hopefully the secondary is allowed to play how the secondary plays well, and therefore will be able to maintain good defense on the back end. And you're keeping him in the pocket, force him to throw. You got guys covered. It's a recipe for success.
Exactly. Let me see. Finish with this one. Tom Spagnola Stires and Vince, what is the most disappointing, the offensive line play or the defensive scheme?
Those are my top two, no doubt about it. It depends on what day you're talking to me, but I think I was most disappointed in the defensive scheme. It just like they took all the aggressiveness out of the defense and they were just playing on their heels all night long, and that's not how this defense is designed to play. It's not how these guys were wired to play. I didn't like it because if they played defense like they have played defense, they don't lose this game, regardless of how the offensive line played.
I agree.
They still put up 24 points, like you would have liked to put up more, obviously, but the defense gave up 27.
Yeah, I didn't I didn't think that Miami would be able to break 17.
Yeah.
And again, I allowed for a 3-point margin of error and said, even if they get to 20, well, if Notre Dame's defense, which held teams to, 16, 17 points a game last year, if Notre Dame's defense holds them to even 20 points, Notre Dame wins the game.
Correct.
So, yeah, I think I have to err toward the defense because they just played too tentatively. There was just too much hesitation, and there was just like looking at them, like going back and rewatching some of the game, like you could see like they're even just getting lined up there were issues with little things like that you didn't see last year. So.
Yep. A lot of things were issues.
Yes.
Defensively, but it just overall, like even taking scheme and like, okay, they played too much zone. And I saw somebody say that they played 64% zone. That is not true at all. At all. Now, did they play too much? Yes, but they did not play 64% zone.
I think it was close to 50-50, wasn't it?
It probably, yeah, I'd have to go back and look at my chart, but it definitely wasn't one more than the other. Those are people that don't know how to look at film, but whatever. The problem is
here comes Mr. All 22.
Well, I'm just saying you
Vincent
can be
All 22 film. Here we go.
You can be aggressive in zone though too.
Right.
Is all the point that I wanted to make. Like it's not just because they played zone and it's not just because they didn't play man. You can be aggressive in zone. You can do things like that and not take the aggressiveness out of the team. It just felt like a very like, oh, we're going to keep everything in front of us. And we're going to, like that's not who these guys are. I don't care what scheme they had. It was the lack of aggressiveness.
Yeah, because you can also, when you're playing zone, to your point about being aggressive and attacking, like you can zone blitz, like you can
Absolutely.
do different things to not just confuse a quarterback, but, it's like you bring a man, okay, you've got zone behind you, you bring a man, then you drop a guy off the line, like a KVA, for example, you just put him into space and then boom, they're like one of the I can't think of the Colts defensive lineman's name, but he perfect example in the game yesterday against Tua, just dropped off little zone blitz and boom, the ball was just thrown right to him because you're not expecting a guy to be there when that kind of stuff happens.
Look, here's a perfect example. Just because you're playing zone doesn't mean you can't get up close to the wide receiver and play on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Right. Because allowing
you can still be physical with it, then let him go.
Then you drop him off, you pass him off to the next guy. Exactly. You don't have to play 8 yards off in order for it. And that's not zone. You can still play 8 yards off. That's called off man. They did that too. Yeah. I have a problem with that. That takes the aggressiveness away from the guy. So they were still in man, but they were playing off man. Notre Dame's they're not an off man team, right? Just like I said, you can play
one
zone.
One of the greatest
up in
assets of Notre Dame secondary is their physicality.
Yes,
and they didn't capitalize on that at all.
Too many short passes. Too many. Carson Beck threw like 90% of his passes were like 10 yards and under. Like they were all short passes.
But you should have known that he was doing with that air raid offense.
Correct.
That's what they want to do in that offense. But again, to your point, like you could still play zone and be physical.
Yes.
Bump them at the line of scrimmage, bump them within 5 yards, get them off their route a little bit, take his timing away from
him.
Do that kind of stuff.
Right. I'm okay with playing zone, but play it aggressively.
Right.
That's my biggest issue.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, hour 2, it's rapid fire. A lot more Notre Dame conversation to come. We'll look at including a little depth chart talk that is all coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's hour 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com, and that can mean only one thing. Vince, it's rapid fire time. Are you ready?
Yeah, baby. Let's do it. We got some good ones today. A lot of fill in the blanks.
Ooh, yeah, I like it. I like it when we can fill in the blanks a little bit. Starting with this first one, fill in the blank, the fact that there are no changes on Notre Dame football's depth chart this week is blank.
Not surprising. Disappointing, but not surprising. How about that?
Okay.
I was not anticipating any changes, although I still texted you, there's no changes to the depth chart. You know what I mean? So, like, I was hoping, but I knew it wasn't going to happen.
No, the only thing less surprising that I could hear is that Vince DeDario got busted trying to stash carryout bags in a backpack, leaving a buffet.
What?
That is the only thing less surprising that I could think of. The Notre Dame having no changes to the depth chart this week.
That's what I have kids for, Sean.
Well,
I mean, come on.
Are you calling your kids anymore? Are they your mules? Is that what you're saying?
They want to eat the rest of the week. They have to be motivated.
Who was the most? Didn't that CC's buffet close down?
Yes, we used to go there.
That's what I was going to say. Who was the most disappointed person in the family when CC's closed down?
No, the kids were disappointed, but I enjoyed. Like, the food wasn't great. Let's be real clear on that. The food was not great.
They're closed, so we can say that with
yes
remorse.
But it was still a great, cheap option to take your kids to because they had pizza and pasta and
we went
different
there a few times when we had the youngins. You know, when the kids were young.
Yeah.
Go hit that buffet up. Why not?
They got the job done.
Yeah, look, I didn't think that they would overreact to, what happened in week 1 because it is one game. At the end of the day, it is one game. The biggest difference is you just have 2 weeks in between games. So you have nothing like now, if the issues that we saw in week 1 that are individualized, less about scheme and all those things, if they keep recurring, then you start having to look at some different things. But, the comment that we played from Marcus Freeman in the first hour of the show about the offensive line, he didn't see things that were personnel based. He saw them more, I think, more about what Miami was doing and, specific people that Miami had. So we'll see if that holds true against Texas A&M this week. But that appears to be the mindset of Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff coming out of that game.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to make drastic changes, obviously, after one game. I mean, that is a panic move. I will say that. The fan in me wanted to see some changes, based on last year and based on game 1, right? But they're looking at it as this season, and you don't want to make any drastic changes. If you start seeing a trend, then you hope that there are some changes to be made. And I guess what I was looking for was at least some competition at certain positions, which we did not see either. So that part of it, I think, is a little disappointing.
Yeah, you would have liked to have heard like Marcus Freeman maybe talk about, hey, some different competition at some different spots and that kind of thing. But it sounded like the big thing was just, they went live much more during this bye week than they would have if it was, like a regular bye week that's a month plus into the season. Like he said that they had to, like tackling was a little bit of an issue. He addressed that, like, like what's so odd is, like we were talking about offensive line versus defensive line. Like Notre Dame held Miami to 3 yards per carry. Like if you would have looked at that, you would think that would have been a really successful night for Notre Dame. But, you got to tackle a little bit better. But like they had I guess what I was starting to say is they had to approximate game speed last week. They still had to do more live stuff than they would usually do during an off week. And maybe that ends up being a good thing for them. They went good on good more during the bye week than they typically, than like if it was a regular game week and you're going ones versus the scout team and that kind of stuff. So maybe that kind of helps pick things up on both sides of the ball as well.
Yeah, it's interesting having a bye week so early. You're not dealing with as many injuries. You're not dealing with as much, bumps and bruises and things like that. So I feel like you can get a little bit more aggressive. And it came after a loss. So, we're going to have a question about this in a minute, but I'm okay with a little extra work. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'm all for it.
1 week later, describe the Miami game in one word.
Disappointing. I'm still just disappointed. I'm not ticked off. I'm not, violently upset. I'm disappointed. Like they just didn't play their game. I've been a part of enough teams, both as a player and as a coach, where you're just not the better team, and you just get it handed to you and you just got to kind of take your lumps and head on to the next game. You know what I mean? That just isn't the case here. And I think that's the disappointing part. They didn't play up to their standard. They didn't play up to their ability, and they got beat by 3 points on basically a last second field goal. It's disappointing. And now they got a lot of work to do. The margin for error, we had this conversation last year, right? Margin for error is like super thin now. And that's disappointing that you're sitting here on September 8th and we're talking about the margin of error for something that's going to happen in December is razor thin. It's disappointing.
Yeah, I think disappointing is a very appropriate word. My word is unsettling, and it's unsettling, kind of piggybacking on some of the stuff that you were saying. It's unsettling just because, of all these different things we've talked about last week and this week, because it was just so uncharacteristic of a Marcus Freeman Notre Dame team. Like we expect them to be in attack mode most of the time, and they just never. I won't say never, but most of the night didn't find them. I keep saying never, even though I'm trying not to say never. They didn't find themselves in attack mode enough of the night, and specifically at the line of scrimmage. Like the fact that they were out physicaled for a good chunk of the night, that is the thing that is the most unsettling to me, and the thing that they ultimately have to answer. Like we really felt like this could be Notre Dame's best offensive line in 8 years since 2017 when they won the Joe Moore Award.
Yeah.
Coming out of that game, that's not what I would be saying. It's not what I am saying right now. So it's unsettling because they weren't in attack mode enough and because they were out physicaled much more than we've seen a Marcus Freeman team be out physicaled.
Yeah.
Probably at least since year one.
Agreed. Just disappointing, man. Very disappointing.
And you're in year 4 now. So who or what did we overrate the most going into last week's opener?
I guess for me, it was the offensive line because I went into it and I think we had another question about which group would you be surprised if they didn't play well? And I said the offensive line, and they played very poorly. So I overrated them. I overrated them going into week 1, and I'm willing to admit that and own that. I still think they have the talent to be one of the better offensive lines in the country. But if that's the effort and that's the performance that, we're going to get as fans and analysts and whatever, the rest of the way, they're not even close to achieving that lofty ranking that I had them at. So I overrated the offensive line going into week 1. Hopefully they prove me wrong again in a good way this time.
Yeah, I would say the offensive line, and I would also say, and again, maybe last week turns out to be the anomaly, but the 2 tackles, like especially Emil Wagner, because what have we said all offseason about Emil Wagner? And I don't, I hate to put it on one person because again, especially since Emil Wagner had the task of going up against Miami's best defensive player at least that night anyway. Does Bain prove to be an All-American? Is he that good all year long? I mean, he was a great player as a freshman. He had 7. I think it's probably easy to forget that Bain had 7.5 sacks as a true freshman 2 years ago, but then he was injured last year. So you look at his numbers last year and maybe that's, skewed some people's thoughts about him. So Wagner, again, did have the task of probably going up against Miami's best player, but still, Emil Wagner was a guy that we didn't have to talk about at all last year. He never had a game like that all last year, even against Texas A&M, going against, some other guys who went on to be first-round draft picks last year. So I think that is the biggest thing. The offensive line in general, and specifically the two tackles. I think that we expected a heck of a lot more from them.
Yep, a heck of a lot more. And we were very much disappointed. And Brian NY keeps saying it's all on Freeman. Yeah, of course, everything is on the head coach. There, no doubt about it. But you can't just say it's on the head coach and then walk away. Like there's more to it than just that. So
I mean, are we going to say that we overrated Freeman after the guy just went to the national championship game? Like,
no, I'm not going there.
No, I mean, honestly, it's because of Marcus Freeman's presence that I have confidence that they can pull out of this, because he has shown that they can do it before. Like there are plenty of examples of that. Again, like, time is going to tell, and I'll just go ahead and throw this up there right now because I forgot that I had started this up. Daniel Harris says, we'll see how good Miami is when they go to USF this coming weekend.
I don't think that's the litmus test for how good Miami is, but
I mean, it might be more the litmus test for USF, but
yeah, agreed.
What if USF beats Miami, after all this?
Well, if that happens, then that's bad news for Notre Dame fans. If that happens, then that means that you really played poorly because Miami's not who you thought that they were.
Because look, what happened when Marshall beat them a few years, in Marcus Freeman's first season. You're going, oh, well, Marshall, man, maybe they're going to win the Sun Belt. Or was it are they in the MAC now? They used to be in the Sun Belt.
They're not in the MAC. USF's not in the MAC.
No.
I'm sorry.
Marshall.
No, they're not in the MAC either.
But my point is, it's like, oh, well, maybe NIU is what I was thinking of last.
Oh, yes.
Maybe NIU goes on to win the MAC, but then go back farther than that,
right?
To Marshall, and it's like, well, what if they become, like the big group of 5 team, and like maybe they're an outside, no shot of that. Like both of those teams, from these smaller conferences that beat Notre Dame, Marshall in year 1 and NIU in year number 3, neither one of them went on to do anything. And so it is still legitimate to ask, like, is Miami really going to be a top 10 college football playoff team, or, do they kind of fall flat? USF right now has turned out to be the darling because they beat a college football playoff team from a year ago in Boise State in their first game. And then they turned around and beat an SEC in-states team last week. Do they have it in them to beat Miami this week as well?
I mean, if they do, great for them. They'll be a ranked team and all of those other things. Then because Miami's going to be top. I mean, they were 5th after last week. I don't know if they moved at all going to this week. For some reason, Notre Dame went up a slot, which I thought was interesting.
I thought it was kind of curious too.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about that, but Notre Dame's number 8 now. So, look, if USF can knock off Miami, that would be very impressive because I do think Miami is better than Florida. So I will say that much. I think Miami is better than Florida.
Yeah. And Miami still got to play Florida as well. They play play USF and Florida State this year. And as of right now, the Florida Gators are the worst, major conference team in the state of Florida.
Right. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we've got more rapid fire, crazy stuff going on in Syracuse this weekend. We had Michigan and Oklahoma, some more college football stuff, and some NFL talk as well. It's all coming up on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. I found that USF Miami game on FanDuel, Vince.
Oh, what's the spread, sir?
You want to guess?
My goodness.
Guess the spread, baby.
I think the spread's going to be 6.5.
It's bigger than that.
Is it bigger than that? Is it double digits?
It is.
How many? Well, let's see. How about 13.5?
Bigger.
20.5.
Not that big.
18.5.
Minus 16.5. Miami is minus 16.5. The over-under is 56.5 points.
Somebody in the chat said they guarantee that USF won't give up 27 points to Miami.
Man.
I don't know about that.
I haven't seen either of their games. Boise State, I don't think is near. They're obviously not what they were last year without Genty and a few other guys. But I mean, the Miami guy, I read some of his stuff. David Lake, the guy had on last week, like over the sun, he ranked like Miami's opponents. He actually had Notre Dame ranked as their second best opponent after Florida, like based on talent, roster, the whole thing. Now, Napier's coaching is another story.
Yeah.
But obviously South Florida just beat him. Now they're going to get some help from a guy spitting on somebody and whatever else against
right.
I just sitting here right now, I kind of like that South Florida getting 16.5 points against the Hurricanes. I don't know what you think.
I mean, that's what the way that South Florida has played. Now, I assume that game is at Miami. Is that at Hard Rock?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a tough one, man.
I'm curious to see what the crowd is like, because apparently, like that place, like Miami home games, they don't, unless it's like Notre Dame or like probably Florida State, those kind of games. It's pretty scarce. I wonder if they even get like 45,000 for that game.
I would doubt it. Now, it'll be helpful that Miami be undefeated, obviously, going into that game.
You get some USF people coming up.
A top 5 team, so I mean, but yeah, I mean, I would think that USF would be able to bring some people, University of South Florida. So that's not that long of a trek, I wouldn't think. And so, yeah, I mean, look, I get the USF plus the points. That's a lot of points. 16.5, 17.5.
It is.
That's a lot of points. And I'm not convinced Miami can score in bunches, and put tons of points on the board. I still think Notre Dame's defense is better than South Florida's defense.
I agree. Beefeater says ESPN has Miami minus 17.5, so even more. I would take that. I would definitely take that extra point on ESPN. The 16.5 is on FanDuel right now. So, all right. Fill in the blank. Syracuse head coach Fran Brown making his team run sprints in full pads on the field immediately after Saturday's win over UConn is blank.
Old school, man. That's old school. There are a lot of old school coaches that do that sort of thing.
There are.
That have done that sort of thing in the past.
Yeah.
And some of those coaches have gotten in big trouble for doing that. So
they have. Sometimes it blows up into a big media maelstrom.
Yes, it does. Sometimes that happens. So, I don't know that I would tell a coach to do that based on personal experience, but I would say that I think it was fantastic watching Syracuse do it.
Doesn't it feel a little showboaty, though?
It 100% does, because the fans were still in the stadium, Sean.
Right.
And you won the game. It's won the game.
Like I retweeted it. It's literally like the miracle.
Yes.
Thing, with Herb Brooks and the game in Finland or wherever it was, when they were over there. And like, it just feels like you're obviously trying to prove a point, but it's like, okay, I'm Fran Brown, and now I'm showing everybody I'm putting my foot down on these guys. It's a little bit much, I think. I would rather handle that. If I were coaching that team, I would rather handle that on Monday or Tuesday whenever they have their first full practice back, at practice and that kind of thing. But he is obviously trying to make a point, trying to make a show out of the whole thing. And I think that he got, mission accomplished.
Yeah. He got the publicity, right? And there were like the picture that I saw that you retweeted, like there was a ton of people in the stands still.
Yeah,
like,
there were
watching this happen.
Yep.
That's not the time. That's not the time. Take them back to where they were going. Because take them back, get on the practice field, then run your drills and your extra running.
Is that the biggest lesson Fran Brown should learn from this whole thing?
Should be.
Okay.
It's probably a letter in his file. He doesn't even know it.
Right. Scale of 1 to 10. How big a deal is Oklahoma's win over Michigan?
Oh, it's like a 7. I mean, it's a big deal, but they were at home. I mean, they held home court. I think they're a better team than Michigan. I mean, the final score, like I watched that game. The final score is not indicative of how that game went. Like Oklahoma was by far the better team in that game. Michigan had no offense. They had no desire to sniff the end zone in that game. And Oklahoma pretty much did what they wanted to do. So it's a big deal because it's a ranked win for Oklahoma. So on paper, it's a big deal. Watching the game, it didn't seem like that big of a deal.
And that's how I'd probably put it at a 5 because, it's like it was a big deal a few years back, however long it's been, when Oklahoma and Michigan scheduled this game, because it is, it is a non-conference game, obviously. And Michigan did just win a national championship a couple of years ago. But, for Oklahoma, it's a win they really needed to have because it's at home. Like when you look at how, where they've got to go, a lot of people are picking them to be a playoff team this year and think that they can be a playoff team. But they've got, as we've gone over a million times, like when you look at their conference schedule, they've got a 5-6 week stretch at the end of the season that is brutal. So I put it at a 6 just because, like, Michigan is still a good defensive team. They're a good physical defensive team, but their offense is obviously just not there. Like it's a ways from being there. Like they're going to have to, their defense is going to have to keep them in games all year long. So I give Oklahoma, not them, but like that's how big a deal it is. It's a 6. I think.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I could see that. Oklahoma I don't think is going to be a playoff team because the schedule's too stinking hard. Like I just don't see them getting through it. And somebody said everyone else knows that Michigan's not a top 15. Well, not everybody knows it because they are ranked as a top 15 team or whatever their ranking was before they lost.
A lot of people think they were a top 15 team. So
I will say this: his name has escaped me. The owner of Barstool Sports is the big Michigan fan.
Oh yeah, Portnoy.
He did a little video on the way home from the game. Hilarious. Like you want to talk about buyer's remorse?
Is he crying?
This man has some buyer's remorse with how much money that he has infiltrated into Michigan for that quarterback who's making $3 million a year. There's definitely some buyer's remorse there at the present, but I thought that was pretty comical.
Yeah, it's hilarious, actually, and it's remember, like this guy is a true freshman still. Not everyone is
absolutely
just come in and play like a championship quarterback in 2 games.
Like if you wanted to give that kid $12 million, I would have scaled it so that it was like a little less as a freshman, maybe a little bit more as a sophomore, and you get more and more as you go. Kind of like NFL contracts, you know what I mean? But $3 million a year, whoo, baby, that's a lot of money to look that bad.
Irish for Life 99 in the YouTube chat says he's a doofus. Stick to what you know, Pizza Boy. Look, I mean,
I agree.
We're going to get a lot more of his bad takes all year long now that he's on that Fox pregame show.
Man, I hope they second guess that decision. But
I know.
I have not seen any of his spots on the Fox, big noon, whatever. But I haven't heard good reviews of his stint on there. I don't know if you've seen any of it.
I just saw a little bit last week. He came in guns blazing with the whole, taking shots at Ryan Day and Ohio State and all that kind of stuff, which, wins you a lot of favor.
And that did not work out well for him, by the way.
Yeah, there's only so far that shtick is going to take you. I didn't get a chance to see, any if he had any real football takes in week 2.
Doubtful.
Guess I'll get the chance this coming up weekend since we've got a Notre Dame night game.
Oh, good point.
Fill in the blank. Sonia Citron setting the Washington Mystics single season scoring record as a rookie is blank.
It's freaking awesome. She's finally kind of out of the shadow, I want
know.
to say, at Notre Dame, because look, we knew she was a great player. And when she was hurt, in her career, when she was hurt and Notre Dame struggled offensively, it was like, hello, there's a reason, because she's a really, really good player. And I'm glad that she's now kind of on her own, so to speak, away kind of from that shadow at Notre Dame. And she's able to be herself, and she's just killing it. I mean, she's absolutely killing it. Good for her. I think that's awesome.
It is amazing because, like you said, like she was basically in the shadow of Miles and Hidalgo really for the last couple of years. And now
I even think she was in the shadow of Maddie Westbeld there for a while too.
Yeah, that's probably true. Now she has the most double-digit scoring games for a rookie in WNBA history. Like, think about that. Like Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, all these greats, Sue Bird, Paige Beckers this year, even, who's also a rookie, Caitlin Clark last year. Any Hall of Famer you can name, Sonia Citron has more double-figure scoring games as a rookie than any of them. And it's just amazing. Like, to me, I can't see how she's not going to win Rookie of the Year. There are some who are still saying Beckers, but like all these things that Citron keeps doing, like it's just nuts. And she's just great start to what's going to be a great professional career for Sonia Citron. We'll take our final break and then back to wrap things up on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat and Rapid Fire with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down rapid fire and Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com, along with Vince DeDario, Sean Stires. We've got still a few more minutes to go here. The Colts, Vince, opened their season with a 33-8 trouncing of Miami. What's more surprising, that the Colts and Danny Dimes looked that good, or that the Dolphins and Tua looked that bad?
Oh, it's Danny Dimes, and it's not close. Like, he looked like a world beater. He's making all Giants fans go, what was that? Like, who? You know, I was shocked at how well he played.
Yeah.
Because along with you, I'm thinking, you know, the future is Riley Leonard in Indianapolis. And we'll see how long this lasts. But he played a hell of a game. Danny Dimes played a hell of a game. And, like, that game was over quickly. Like, it was over quickly.
It really was. It really was. They became the first team, the Colts, since 1977 to have the ball 7 times and score on all 7 possessions in that game. And, like, I knew that the Dolphins defense would not be that good. I didn't realize that they would be that bad. And what I also didn't know is, you know, again, like, that the Colts defense would look that dominating, because, you know, you still have Tua and Devin Achane and Tyreek Hill. I think he got injured in the game at some point. And Waddle, like, there's a lot of offensive firepower on that Dolphins team, and they just looked horrible. But the fact that Danny Dimes could lead an offense that looked like that might be the best game he has ever had in his career. Amazing.
I will be lying if I said I am familiar with the ins and outs of Danny Dimes' career, because I'm not a Giants fan and I don't follow the NFL that closely, but I know that he was cast off for a reason. And the Colts were basically brought him in to be a backup. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And he won the job. But again, the bar was set pretty low, and I wasn't expecting much in game 1. I really wasn't. The problem is the Dolphins are on the downswing, man. Like,
yeah,
it's a rough situation down there.
Mike McDaniel I think the seat is warming up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We'll see what the Colts actually are next week. They'll play the Broncos, a much better defense that they'll see next week. But, I mean, hey, you come in, you've got Daniel Jones, and you win a game like that, you're going to take it if you're the Colts. Yeah. They're feeling pretty good.
No doubt.
We'll continue with more NFL talk for the people who say we only talk Cowboys when we talk NFL on this show. The Buffalo Bills scored 15 points in the last 4 minutes to beat Baltimore 41-40 in an amazing game last night. Did the Bills win it, or did the Ravens lose it?
This is a great question. I had to really think hard about this one, but I watched the majority of this game, and the Dirty Bird. No, the Dirty Birds are Atlanta, right? So they're not the Dirty Birds, but they're birds nonetheless. I will say that the Bills won the game because Baltimore pretty much did what they wanted to offensively most of the game. I mean, you can't blame the offense. Like, they played well the entire game. It's just the Bills caught fire at the end and scored a bunch of unanswered points. And then, you know, hit a game-winning field goal with a guy who wasn't even on the team 3 days ago. So I think the Bills won it.
In the last 25 years, teams trailing by 15 points with 4 minutes to go in the game were 3 and 2,312. 3 wins, 2,312 losses in the same situation the Bills were in last night. I've got a shade to the other side because, look, if Derrick Henry doesn't fumble,
yeah, that was big.
I think that the Ravens walk out of Buffalo with a win. I mean, they were up 40-25 with 4 minutes to go, and they end up losing. Derrick Henry averaged 9.3 yards per carry. If he just holds on to that football, I think it's a different story today. And, you know, like, all the odds have shifted now. The Bills, after winning that game, they're the Super Bowl favorites out of the AFC. And, you know, all the MVP odds have changed and all that based on one game in week 1. Let's not completely overreact.
Yeah.
Greatly entertaining game, though.
It was.
Last night, I do have to say that. Like, that's what you wanted out of a game like that with those two quarterbacks and those two teams.
Well, and with that being the only option, obviously, on Sunday Night Football, so that's what we had to watch, and it was extremely entertaining. So I appreciate that.
It was. Scale of 1 to 10, what is your excitement for Ben Johnson's debut when the Bears play the Vikings tonight?
It's like a 6.5, 7. I mean, if I got excited every time the Bears had a new head coach, I'd be excited all the time. So
True.
I think
coach for a new first-round quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So look, do I think he's got the goods? Yes, I think he's going to be. I think he's got the brains, to be a good head coach. I think he's an offensive, mastermind, and we'll see if he can do something with this Bears offense that seems to be more anemic more often than not. But like I said, I just want the defense to plant the Vikings quarterback multiple times. That's what I want.
I am really curious to see, because we already saw, at least again, overreacting to week 1 in the NFL is pretty hazardous. But the Lions looked horrible after losing both their coordinators from last year to head coaching jobs, and their offense could just never get on track against Green Bay yesterday. So if Ben Johnson has taken just a couple ounces of that to Chicago and can really apply it to Caleb Williams, I think that we could, at the very least, finally be in for some entertaining football in Chicago.
So I haven't seen that in a while.
I'd put it a 6. I'm not a Bears fan, but I guess my curiosity is probably, maybe the better thing for me, like a 7 or an 8 in terms of what we're going to get tonight.
It's the only thing to watch. So
Flatten JJ McCarthy. So.
Yeah, it's the only thing to watch, so we'll see how it goes.
Buck and Aikman. I think we got the Manning cast and
that's true.
The whole thing. Good point, Johnny. 2 times in the YouTube chat. I don't know why I didn't even think about that. You got 2 former Duke quarterbacks on one NFL team in Indianapolis with Daniel Jones and Riley Leonard.
Didn't think about that either, because I don't think of Riley Leonard as a Duke quarterback anymore. So
I know.
Yeah, good point.
All right, we will wrap it up with that. A lot of great stuff. Vince, enjoyed it as always. I will talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir. Be there, be square.
All right. Be aware, we have some whiteboard coming in on tomorrow's show. So get ready for that. We'll talk to you then. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.